Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Today, I'm going to be giving you my season preview for the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you couldn't tell by the jersey, the banner up here, the lightning bolt over there, I get mixed up. I'm a Thunder fan, and I'm a really big one at that. I'm super excited that the season is now just around the corner. For me personally, it felt like the offseason was really dragging, and then kind of out of nowhere, we had media day, and now preseason is in like a week, and in even like less than a month, we have real regular season basketball. It's right there, and I'm going to do a full like season preview for the NBA as a whole. But as a big Thunder fan, I would argue the biggest Thunder fan, I want to give you my thoughts on this season and kind of go through some of the players, some of the big storylines for this upcoming season. And while the Thunder aren't going to be competing for very much this season, they're not going to be a playoff team, they're not going to compete for a championship or anything like that, this is a big year. The Thunder have a chance to start to build a culture, build something special, and this is an opportunity for a lot of the young players on this team. There are 13 guys on this roster with 3 or less years of NBA experience. That's how young this roster is. It's basically a college team at this point. And so this is a chance for all the young guys to show what they're capable of and make big leaps. And I think there's a lot of guys that have the potential to do really big things this season. Building a winning culture starts in these early stages of the rebuild, and there's a lot of fun things to think about as a Thunder fan, or even if you're a fan of another team. The Thunder are going to be a fun watch. I can guarantee you that. We may not win a lot of games, but we're going to be a fun team to watch. So, when I talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, I have to start with the guy who just got a max contract extension in the offseason, the franchise cornerstone, point guard, shooting guard, whichever position you want to say that he is. He is our best player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Should have been an all-star this past season. I think this is going to be easily an all-star year for him. I think people kind of realized how snubbed he got, and I think he's really started to gain respect over the course of this offseason. And for all the people saying that, like, oh, I hope Shai gets to play the whole season and he doesn't get shut down, I'm going to say this in video form. Shai did not get shut down because we were winning games. Shai had a big foot injury that not only kept him out at the end of the season, but kept him out of the Olympics, which he kept saying he was dying to play in. So Shai didn't get shut down to tank. Shai got shut down because he was hurt. And so for that reason, I believe as long as he stays healthy, he will play this entire season out. He's probably going to win us more games than maybe a Sam Presti would like us to, but that's just what comes with having a player as good as he is. A top 30 player, one of the best young players in the entire league, not just in like the West, not just at the guard position, in the league in general. He's going to be an all-star. He's going to average around 25 points per game, I believe. He's also going to have an uptick in assists, hopefully, because I believe players are going to improve alongside him. We'll get to some of those guys in a second. But Shai had so many opportunities to get like double-digit assist games over the course of this season, and guys just weren't hitting shots. It just wasn't a super talented team last year, and I think a lot of guys are going to take jumps. It's going to let him get those numbers up. I think ultimately he's an all-star, and I think he's a guy that a lot of people are going to talk about as a sleeper all-NBA guy. I don't think he gets in just because I don't expect the team to be very good, and that is something that's going to come into play when they look at him and maybe some of these other young guards that could get that spot instead, with how the Thunder are probably going to be this season. I think Shai ultimately doesn't end up getting that award, but I think the season after this coming one, Shai's going to start making all NBA. If not making the team, he's going to make conversations very interesting very quick. I think this is a big year for Shai, an all-star like I said. I think he could even be a most improved player candidate. If his efficiency keeps rising, maybe he has a huge uptick in scoring and gets like 26 or so points per game. There is a world, but I do think a lot of other guys are going to improve as well, and that will kind of take away from maybe his case for a most improved player himself. I think this past season was his chance to get it, and missing the second half of the season really ended up hurting his case in that regard. So, while he may not win most improved player like he could have won last season, I think he's finally going to get that all-star appearance that he should have gotten this past year. He's going to be phenomenal and continue to gain the respect that he's started to gain over the course of these past couple seasons, and this past season especially. Now, going down from Shai, obviously the number one, but below him, I think there are a few guys that are kind of like most improved player candidates, and I think there are 3 guys that I could like realistically see being guys that are talked about in the most improved player conversation. The first one is Dort. Right now, he's considered the number 2 on this team. Great defensive player. We know that. That's no secret at all. But I think his offensive game it's shown a lot of improvement, and the way that he continues to rapidly improve, if he makes another jump, he could be in that conversation. If he averages maybe like a 16, 17 points per game, like he makes a significant jump, I think there is a chance, as well as the fact that he's just going to keep getting better defensively. Maybe he makes an all-defensive team. I really hope he does this upcoming season. I think Dort's in for a big year. He showed a lot of flashes of a super consistent three ball at the beginning of last season, and I'm hopeful that that was more than just a flash in the pan. That could be his new consistency. He shot well, and if he continues to get better, his big thing he needs to work on is finishing around the basket, and I think that'll get better as the talent around him gets better, because when you have more guys that can space the floor, last year's Thunder team was one of the worst, if not the worst team in three-point shooting in the league, and so for that reason, it was kind of tough to space the floor out a lot. I think it's going to be better this upcoming season, and I think that'll let Dort get a lot easier drives. He is the defensive anchor of this team, whether you put him at the 2 or the 3. He can guard really any position 1 through 3, maybe even some smaller 4s with just, he's built like a truck in that he's just so hard to move for those guys, kind of similar to like a Marcus Smart type player, where even though he's a shooting guard, he plays so much bigger than that, and he's able to really get in defenders' head or offensive players' heads. There was I believe it was Mark Daignault said that there was a story that he heard from an opposing coach where his player came back to the bench and he was like, that guy Dort is everywhere. We can't get around him. And that's what I expect more of from Dort this season. Next, we have Pokuszewski. Poku is a guy that quickly established himself as a potential cornerstone for this team. The draft pick, some people were unhappy with it. Some people were like, cool, when it happened. And now I think most Thunder fans are super on board with it. Poku was not great last season, but what really showed were the many flashes that he had. I made a whole video talking about Poku on my channel if you want to go look for it. I believe it's called like The Next Unicorn, Alexei Pokuszewski, or something along those lines. You can find it if you just search like unicorn on this channel. Poku is good, or he's going to be good, and I think this is going to be a big season for him. They spent all offseason training him, getting him stronger. I think he said he ate like 11 meals a day at some points. Poku is in for a really big season, and I think he's going to make some important jumps. He showed so many flashes of defensive skills, playmaking, scoring. It's just got to come more consistently. And I think as the game slows down for him, as he gets more used to it, adjusts, and learns kind of more of the NBA game, because this last season, he was the youngest player in the league. And this year, he still is one of the youngest players in the league. The only guy younger than him on the whole roster is Josh Giddy, who is also now one of the youngest players in the league, but we'll get to him in a second. Poku is still super young, and so for him to show that many flashes in like his age 18, 19 season, Poku's going to be so good in the future, and I think this year is a season where he really hones those skills and shows them a lot more consistently and starts to get more kind of like national recognition for what he can become. For Darius Baisley, my third guy in this kind of MIP candidate tier, a lot of people have forgotten about him. And coming into last season, he was considered along Shea and Dort to be like the big 3 that we were going to build around going forward. And I still think there is that jump in Baisley. This is a big year for him though. If he doesn't take that jump, I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Presti decides to move on or decides that he's really not part of that core group anymore. This is going to be a big year for him though. I think he's going to make jumps. I think he's going to get more consistent. I hope he's able to show more of that three-point shooting that we saw in the bubble from him. Baisley has a lot more to unlock in his game. And really what I think he's lacking at the moment is go-to moves. It feels like when I watch him drive, he's kind of just freestyling. He doesn't have anything he's able to reliably get a shot off with. And I think over the course of this offseason, what I've seen that he's worked on, it seems like his handle is improved. It seems like his ability to create space is improved. And I think ultimately that will make the game so much easier for him, alongside the developments and improvements that I think the other guys on this roster are going to make. I think the game is going to open up a lot more this season for Darius Baisley. Now, moving on from those guys, we have 4 rookies on the roster this season: Josh Giddy, Trey Mann, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, and Aaron Wiggins. I'll start with Aaron Wiggins. I don't know how much run he's going to get. I hope he does get some opportunities, but I wouldn't be surprised if he spends most of his season in the G League. He is someone that I like a lot. He showed a lot in Summer League, and I hope he does get some run. But it's just a crowded roster, so I'm not quite sure how much he will get. But if he does get some opportunity, look for those flashes because they show a lot between defensive and slashing talents. I think there is something there in his game. For Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, he's someone where I wouldn't mind if he started at center day one. I love his game. I think Thunder fans are really going to quickly fall in love with the way he plays. He's just such a solid player. He reminds me a lot of Al Horford, who's just like a constant, like, stable presence. He can stretch the floor as a big. He's a better playmaker than you might assume from his height. He feels like the game comes naturally to him, and it kind of is like that Villanova product. So many guys out of Villanova, they just feel so natural. Like, it feels like the game comes so easily to them. He's an NBA ready player, and I think he's going to make an impact from day one. Trey Mann, it's going to be tough to figure out the guard rotation for Mark Daigneault, and that is one of the storylines we're going to talk about, but I hope he does get some good run. We drafted him for a reason. I like his shot creating ability. I think that is something this team desperately needs, so I was happy that we got that in the draft. Excited to see what he can bring this season, and I hope he does get a decent amount of run. And finally, we have Josh Giddy, our 6th overall pick. I think he's in for a big year. I think he's going to be an all-rookie player, whether it's first team or second team. I'm hopeful it's first team. I want to see a stat line from him that's something like 11 or 12 points, like 6 assists, and like 5 rebounds. Like, if I could see something like that, would be a phenomenal rookie season. Numbers might not be quite that high, but I do think he has the potential to put up a pretty solid, like, what's the term I'm looking for? Like just like a good, like, almost like a Ben Simmons light-esque stat line this season. Of course, not the defense that Ben Simmons quite has, but he is going to have a good year. I think people are sleeping on Josh Giddy. I think he makes all rookie first team. He makes life so much easier for Shea as a playmaker, and that is something last year's team desperately needed. Shea was the only one who ever was able to make plays with the ball, and so having Josh Giddy come in is going to be a big factor for this team, the way that this team plays, and I'm excited to see how he and Shea work together. Then we get down kind of like the role players on this team. I'm not going to talk about all of them. First one I'll start with is Isaiah Roby. Started at center a lot for us last season. Wouldn't be surprised if he did that sometimes this season as well. Good, solid young piece. Fun defensive player. Excited to see what he brings to the table. Ty Jerome, UVA legend. Shout out to my guy, Ty Jerome. He was phenomenal, our best shooter this past season, so I hope he continues to get run because we do need that shooting on the court, and developing a guy like that who can be that shooter at the guard position, whether it's at the 2 or the 1, I think that's important for this roster. Chemist Williams, he was a great surprise this past year. Super solid role player. We held on to him at the trade deadline, so I do expect for him to get some playing time, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really solid season and ends up getting shipped off to a contending team at the trade deadline, just because I think he's a team that any team would, or a player that any team would really love to have. Teo Maledon started at point guard a lot for us this past year, and I think he kind of gets forgotten when we talk about this young team, but Teo's going to have a good year. It might be a little tough. He's not going to have as much opportunity as maybe like Dort, Poku, and Baisley to make that big progression because there's so many guards on this roster, but I do think he is going to be an important piece going forward. Plus, he looks jacked. Like, it looks like he spent his whole summer in the gym, which is cool. Then we have Veet. He is someone that we drafted the past draft, not this one that just happened. He was out all season with an ACL injury, so he's coming back. He has kind of like guard skills. Some people have said I look like him, so if you look up a picture of him, maybe I do, but I'm just curious to see what he can bring to the table. I don't have any expectations. I know he has guard-like skills. We'll see what he does. Derek Favors, I think he gets traded at some point during the season. He's going to bring a nice veteran presence to this really young team while he's here, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets traded halfway through the season. And finally, Mike Muscala re-signed with us. He's someone that I think hangs around. I think he's just a nice vet to have. And ultimately, it seems like he likes being in OKC, stretches the floor, which is something that this team really needs. And for that reason, I think he's going to be valuable. He had like the best season of his career last year, and I think that he's going to kind of build on that a little bit this upcoming year as a nice stretch big. So those are my thoughts on a lot of our players, where I think everyone's going to be at for this upcoming season, things to look out for. Heading into the season, there are also some storylines. The first one I want to talk about is who is the number 2 option. Obviously, Shea's the number 1, but coming into this year, who's the number 2? Last year, it was Dort and also Horford at times when he did play. Dort was the main one, though. Will Dort continue to get better offensively? Will Poku take some more shots as a guy who we really want to develop and build around? What ends up happening, I'm curious to see. Does Derek Favors take over taking a lot of shots? I think there's potential for it to be a lot of different guys. If I had to make a guess, it's probably going to be Dort, and Poku will probably be like that number 3 option, or at least that's what I would kind of like to see. Maybe Josh Giddy does more scoring than we expect him to as well. There are a lot of different guys that can make those jumps, and so I think it's interesting to think about and kind of take a look at who could be that number 2. Next, how do the Thunder manage all the guards on the roster? There's not as many as some people say, and I do think there is a lot of positional versatility on this team. We've got like Dort can play the 2 or the 3. Giddy can play a 1, 2, or a 3 because he's like 6'9". Trey Mann and Ty Jerome could both do like a 1 or a 2. Trey Mann's a little bit smaller, so probably mainly 1, but plays more like a shooting guard as well. So there's a lot of different options. We can play guys at different positions. Teo can play the 1 or the 2. So I think Mark Daigneault's going to get creative with the guard rotation to hopefully get everyone some minutes. I'm curious to see the way it goes. And for that reason, my third storyline is what kind of weird lineups are we going to get? Maybe we see a lineup run out there with like a bunch of guys like 6'6" and taller. We get like Shea, Poku, Baisley, like a Favors, Mike Muscala. Maybe we get something weird like that where everyone is tall. Maybe we get a lineup out there where it's like 3 or 4 guards with like Shea at the 4 or something if we really want to get crazy. Or I guess even Giddy at the 4 who's 6'9". Who knows? There are so many different guys that could run different positions. I hope Mark Daigneault gets weird with it. That's what I want to see this season. I want to see him just experiment with weird stuff, see what sticks, and see what works going forward. And finally, just kind of picks. We have the Clippers' unprotected first-round pick this year. They're going to be without Kawhi Leonard for the whole season or most of the year, so maybe they don't play as well, and maybe we get another lottery pick if they don't make the playoffs. Also, the Suns' top 12 protected pick, and they're going to be better than a bottom 12 team, so that pick will also go to the Thunder. And then the Pistons pick, we have it this year. It is top 16 protected. I don't think they make the playoffs, so that's still going to be the Pistons pick most likely, but it's something to consider. Finally, we technically don't have our pick, but it's lottery protected. It's to the Hawks, so if somehow this team makes the playoffs, then the Thunder will lose their pick, but I wouldn't count on that happening. My official projection, I don't want to do a record because I'm not really sure. Maybe I'll do that in another video, but I think this team is going to be anywhere from the 15 to, like, if everything goes right, the 12 seed. They're super young. It would take some big jumps to make it to that 12 seed spot. Realistically, I think we're a 15, 14, or 13 seed in the West, fighting right around that bottom with the Rockets and the Spurs alongside us. I think it's going to be a season where we get a good draft pick and hopefully get like a Chet Holmgren or a Paolo Banchero in the draft. Those are my thoughts on the team. Also, I'm excited to see what Mark Daigneault does this year. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's going to really impress some people this upcoming season. Let me know what your thoughts are on this year's Thunder team, if there are any storylines that you're looking at. What are your expectations for the team, different players? Just let me know all that in the comment section below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe whether you're a Thunder fan or just an NBA fan in general. A lot of NBA content is coming very, very soon with the season right around the corner, so don't miss out on that. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.